Welcome to the Death Battle Cast.
Woo.
We are the cast and crew of Death Battle and more, and today is our mid-season wrap-up for the middle of Season 8. Just released our mid-season finale, Link versus Cloud. We got plenty of questions to get to. This is a big Q&A episode, but also just kind of talking about the season so far and how things have been going. So, as always, I'm Ben, voice of Wiz, joined by Chad, voice of the Boomstick.
That's me.
It's Chad. We got Liam, writer, director, lead researcher.
Hello.
Who may be talking, but I can't hear him, which is great.
Oh, what?
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
And then we have Luis, animation director, lead animator, just amazing, talented person overall.
Yes.
Album cover master.
Yes. And we're so excited to have you guys here. Real quick, because I know I talk with my hands a lot, so you'll probably see this come up. Just to give some context, I've been watching a friend's cat for a little while now. And a couple days ago, it was time to take him home. And the cat and I seemed to get along really well. He would even crawl into my lap a few times. And I was like, this is a nice cat. He's very chill, very kind for a cat. And being the dog person I am, I was like, when it's time to take him home, I could just pick him up and put it in his crate. No, I can't.
No.
Oh my God.
We didn't like that very much.
So he got me pretty good. So if you see that, it's fine.
It's a going away present just for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. I got him in there eventually, but you know.
Cats have a time limit.
It hurt a little bit.
Well, of how long that they're like they can accept like love and like petting and stuff, but only up until their time limit. And when you hit the time limit, off, done. No, don't touch me. Don't get away from me.
Yeah, you crossed the line. No, you will be scratched and bitten.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now I have a nemesis, which is great.
Great.
There you go. Dude, I got bit hard the other day when I was on vacation. I stayed at my friend Andrew's house, and they've got a couple cats, and I'll play fight with my cat, or even my friend Ellie Miles' cat, and they're like down to they'll give you like the little bit of the claws, like the tiny bites, and I'm like, that's fine, So I was playing with their cat Skipper, and I was like, "Are we gonna fight?" Everything seems to be going good, and then he's just like, and just like bites the fuck out of my hand. I was like, "Oh shit, that's right, you are you got real teeth." And
you're carnivore.
That can happen.
This is why I'm a dog person. Renner24 in the chat, I love it. It says, "This is why Toriyama made a cat the god of destruction." That sounds about right. Speaking of which, if you are not watching this live, you're watching this on YouTube or Rooster Teeth later, that's great. But we do these shows live on Wednesday at noon, and we will be looking at the chat throughout this entire Q&A session. So if there's anything you want to contribute to the conversation or ask about, feel free to do so. Okay, so we can go ahead and get to
before we do that real quick. I just want to do a shout out because it's like a really cool thing. I don't know if you guys have heard, but we teamed up with the folks at Adult Swim and got to do our own Achieve line of Rick and Morty merch. Somehow,
yes,
it's crazy that this exists, and there's some really, really, really cool designs. So head to store.roosterteeth.com and pick some up before they're gone. Because I imagine, I'd like to think that these might become collector's items down the line, right? Anyway, it's super cool. Go get them.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's wild.
All right, so let's get to those cues so that we can deliver you guys some A's. That makes sense. Sure. And these questions are pulled from Twitter. So let's go ahead and bring up the first one.
This one comes from Anthony Lisi. Why couldn't Steven Universe for Star and Poe vs. Iron Fist be hand-drawn? Yeah, why not, Luis? Why did you get on that?
God damn it.
Yeah, probably because I don't know if you know this, but doing a hand-drawn fight takes a lot of time. And those fights are they were back to back, and I feel like it was one of those things where we weighed our options basically, and we looked at the entire production for the first half of the season, and we thought that we could achieve what we were trying to do with sprites rather than using hand drawn stuff, and we can save that save everybody some really crazy amount of work basically working on those two fights back to back and stuff like that. So
yeah, especially like, so we've talked a lot about how we try to make sure that when we do these battles, they sort of capture the feel of the characters and the shows and the games and whatnot they come from. And so when we were pitching Steven Starr at the beginning of the year, we absolutely talked about whether or not we would be able to make it in a hand-drawn style or a puppet like drawn style, similar to like a Deadpool mask. At the end of the day, Death Battle does not have an enormous budget or time. Like, it may look like we do, and certainly compared to other YouTube versus shows, we definitely are very lucky in that regard. But we're not able to just make any episode we want into some like massive hand-drawn thing unless Luis gets drunk and promises something ridiculous and then just decides to go through with it anyway. Which,
definitely not.
technically speaking, we only have one battle that is 100% hand-drawn, which should not have been. But Luis, it was a passion project, so
it was fucking
Well,
awesome.
that and the blind parrot stuff.
yeah, but I mean, they still used a lot of the like techniques. I'm talking about literally every frame hand drawn.
Gotcha.
Originally, I mean, obviously, like the Blind Ferret / Laughing Dragon stuff and the stuff that's done with the Harmony team is hand drawn as well. It's just a different style that we're able to make use of a lot more effectively than just slaving away at every single image piece by piece, which is, an intense and awesome animation style that we want to support, but it's just not something that Death Metal can realistically do, unless you want like 3 episodes a year.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's super cool when we do end up doing those kind of like fights, but like it's one of those things where we had to, if we're gonna be doing something like that, we had to make like sacrifices here and there to kind of make that happen. And we'd rather give you guys like just the best fights you can get for each one of the matchups, and not give you like a really like a really simplified version of a fight, and then like give you like a really cool, awesome fight. It just like, if we bounce it out, everybody gets to get the matchup exactly how they want it to be, and we don't want to
Frankly,
And shout out to you guys. You're incorporating a lot of hand drawn elements now into the sprite fight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
it's
actually really like how Death Metal's always been an experiment to a large degree, right? Like, it's funny. There are times we need to wrap up this question and move on, but there are times when I think about like, is it a problem that we do a bunch of different styles of animation? Because like, somebody might tune into something like Link vs. Cloud and see, oh, they do 3D animation, and then they watch another one and it's a sprite-based thing, and they think like this is a different show, or they don't like it as much, or they like it better. It's like, do we have like a problem with inconsistency? And it might be, but at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit, because I think it's really fun to explore different animation styles, and also give these guys a lot of different tools to like play around with. I think that's way better.
I think we made a happy medium with both fights. We added hand-drawn elements, we added sprite elements, and we kind of like made it so that each fight has their own like special moments, and like we really highlight those. So hopefully you like them, and hopefully you like the
I love it.
as well.
I think you guys did a fantastic job. All right, question 2.
Next, this one comes from Ice. I'm picturing it's Ice from oh my god, why am I blanking on the name of it? Come on. Ah, God.
Yeah.
Hocus Pocus. There we go. Got it. Why didn't Steven use his monster form? And wasn't it out of character for Star to attack right off the bat?
I think we can get that second part out of the way real quick. Yeah, I mean, that generally how death metal fights have to start. Is the character's a little out of character in order to start the fight. We just kind of have to just kind of let that happen in order for there to be a fight. I would love to be able to create big epic sequences of like the characters meeting and like a legitimate story or whatever going on.
Clash of ideologies.
Yeah, but like
instead we have them fight over food usually.
Yeah, exactly. Like I prefer to dedicate our manpower and time to the fight, the things that most people are coming to actually see, and also like
it'd be hilarious.
It's also leaning into fan fiction a bit. Nothing against fan fiction or anything, but Death Metal's not meant to be fan fiction per se. It's meant to just be like a fun fight with analysis.
would be
So-
hilarious to kind of have like a fight that is like 2 minutes, like 3 minutes long, and then 2 minutes is them like setting up the story for the fight, and then like they just start the fight immediately ends. It's like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah, we're just
I like
out of
this.
time, so the fight is
Yeah.
10 seconds long.
Yeah.
All right, but the first question was, why didn't Steven use his monster form? Really simple answer. Well, actually, it's kind of a complicated answer, but the main thing is it didn't feel right. It didn't feel appropriate, frankly, given the context of the monster form. And the monster form still possesses all the same power as the pink state form. They're both the same form. They're just different expressions of it. So we figured it doesn't really add anything in terms of the analysis, in terms of presenting Steven as greatest, to include the monster form. It would just be leaning into this very emotionally traumatizing sort of moment that has a lot more context than just he's powerful now, that we didn't really feel was appropriate for the fight. But again, doesn't affect the result anyway because of what the pink state is. That's it.
Great.
Next question.
This one's from 100% Cherry Cola. In regards to sprite fights, what made you guys switch from the single animator style of older seasons to the collaborative style found in modern seasons? Lots of reasons.
yeah.
But I think one of the first was so that the episodes could come out on time. There were
second,
definitely a few
lot was gone.
instances where we had someone have an issue, like their computer crashed and exploded.
Nightmare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or had a corrupt file.
Oh.
There's all, yeah. So that was, I think, what began the conversation. We were like, when it's all on one person, if one thing goes wrong, the whole fight is screwed. So,
Yeah.
so that was the beginning, and then it evolved into like getting to work together and building a new department and getting a lot of different people to like team up and work together, which then made everyone's animation even better and cooler and shared ideas. But it started with we need to stop it, stop the breaking and the bad stuff.
It's more efficient, gets more people involved, gets a lot more artists involved, and also like we have a bunch of different sorts of teams. Like we are part of Rooster Teeth Animation, so we are literally part of an animation team. Luis's team, for example, this is just their job. Like this is what they do. But then we also have the different freelance teams that we work with as well. That's not to say we don't do the individual animation thing. Like sometimes DBX will do it, and that's a much more reasonable thing for a single animator to take on because it's like a minute or so long. It's a shorter, more personalized project, right? Whereas a death battle is like a big 3 to 5 minute fight with a lot of different things that we very specifically need to hit. So there's less creative freedom per se. But you know, we have always championed creative freedom when it comes to animation. Yeah. Let's get on to the next question. Question 4. Oh, I'll read this one. From Byveed. Why did Boomstick never mention Tai Long by name in Poe versus Iron Fist? I was barely scraping on that sidebar cameo, man. So, Chad,
I don't know.
I don't really
That's what the
understand it.
script said.
But there were a lot of questions asking why we didn't mention Tai Long.
I think it's like a joke. I think it's like a meme. I think it's like
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is either. I
Or
think
that
I
one
think that guy
specifically
just
asked
likes
you,
Tai
so-
Long.
So, Chad, why did Boomstick not talk about Tai Long?
Yeah,
'Cause
Chad. The fuck.
he hates tigers. No, he wasn't. It wasn't in the script.
That's canon now. Boomstick hates tigers. Put that in.
I'm sure the community is laughing their ass off right now.
Okay, here.
There's some kind of inside joke or
Tai
something.
Long is the greatest character ever. There you go. You happy now? Now it's been mentioned.
Also, before people jump down his throat, yes, we know he's a leopard. All right,
Oh, yeah,
next
that's right.
question.
Oh yeah, he's a leopard.
Chad, you
Question
doing
5.
the?
Whatever. All right, this one's from Angry Poppy. Considering that both Mario vs. Sonic and Link vs. Cloud remakes had different outcomes than the original fights, how has your methods of research changed from when the original death battles aired?
Oh, I actually forgot to mention this one to Liam. I kind of want you to help cover this one as well.
Yeah, sure.
So, but like this is kind of a very large and complicated one, so I think we can kind of touch on it a little bit. But looking at Link versus Cloud, thinking about, and Chad, you'll remember it, I'm sure a bit, like thinking about how we handled the original Link Cloud back in 2012, right? It was very much us not really knowing what we were doing in a lot of ways. It was the very first time we ever brought in an RPG character. It was the very first time we ever brought in a character like Link who has multiple incarnations. So a lot of it was sort of figuring out how to present those characters. And I still think to a certain extent, like the way we did it, like there's reasons for it. It's not like we were just making shit up. But I personally, looking back on it, I don't really like the methods we used. I don't think it really represents the characters to their fullest extent, and definitely skews it more towards
It's been
Link.
refined.
Yes, refined a lot, especially with Cloud, I think.
That
And so,
said, there was a special charm looking into like everything that this character's been in, and finding some real weird shit. I do really miss. I mean, we still get to do that, but like looking at like what we did Donkey Kong, right, and the Donkey Kong animated show.
I remember watching that and
That's-
being like, wow, a lot of this episode is being devoted to this animated program.
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with the. Well, I guess it technically has something to do with it, but
I
Not
loved
worth
it.
it.
I thought the bits were funny. I would say that like, so obviously I wasn't there for the original Link versus Cloud or Mario versus Sonic or any like really early death battles. So I can't say specifically how it's changed, but I can say that just observing those episodes and then knowing what the process we do now, there's a higher focus on nailing down, first off, like nailing down the stats of the characters. So like strength, speed, and durability, like the things that like, okay, if one character is like way better in this, then he could just like punch the other guy and cause him to explode regardless of whatever. So and that also leads into like looking into calcs and stuff. Lots of more scaling as well, in general, because, you know, okay, maybe this character is really powerful, but they haven't done anything that can be measured that looks really powerful. They've just beaten up characters that have like really powerful feats. Like Goku's a good example. Like up until like his punch clash with Beerus, like Goku didn't really have any direct powerful like feats. He didn't blow up planets, obviously. He's Goku, he's a good guy. Blew up like islands, you know, but obviously he was not just an island buster, right? So I would say that like those are big things. I'd also say that like we just found stuff in terms of like Link versus Cloud in this like go around that I don't know if you guys would have had access to that like information back then, whether it's new or whether it's like really obscure like data books that we looked into. We also treated their arsenals differently, or how we approached their arsenals differently, which was just a change in philosophy.
and I think those two points are really big points. The fact that we have more people working on it helps a lot.
Yeah,
it's
sure
not
does.
just me and Chad basically figuring things out on the fly within 2 weeks. We got a team of researchers, which is awesome, and who know what they're doing, which is fantastic. Then the philosophy as well has changed dramatically. Like the way Death Battle started, I always viewed it as specifically a logic puzzle, right? Figuring out a winner would be asking questions and answering them. And it was less about the comparison of the stats and the individual abilities, and more about and how they are represented individually, and more about if you just throw them together, what happens. And it's more complicated than that now. At least our process is more complicated. Let's get on to question 6.
This one comes from Charlie Kraus. Was it as difficult to determine the winner for Link versus Cloud this time around as it was back in 2012? Since you once said it was the hardest battle to determine the winner of before Hulk versus Doomsday took that title.
I think we kind of covered a little bit of this already with the previous question. It wasn't, I don't think, because looking back on it, I think the reason why the original Link Cloud was so difficult to figure out was because we had never done these types of characters before at the time. And we really weren't sure how to present them, so we were kind of figuring that out as we went along. So the second time around, we had a much clearer direction, especially after bringing Sephiroth in. I think our analysis of Sephiroth really helped prepare us for this.
Link and Cloud are characters that are both very, very, very well covered in like versus communities, so it was not hard for us to find the resources that like just the community as a whole has like scrounged and dug up and being like, oh, here we go. Yeah.
I have a question for Luis, actually. I want to interrupt real quick. Luis, this is the first year where you have been lead for every single death battle fight, right? Every single animation. Whether it uses Animate, Harmony, Blender, Maya, Unreal, whatever. What has that been like, jumping into all these different teams, leading all these different teams?
Well, I'll tell you this much. At first, it was a little bit scary, you know, because I mean, like, it's working with people I've never worked with before, and in terms of like the animation teams, the 3D animators and stuff, it was you know, it was scary at first, but then like I noticed that like while doing director work, it's very similar to what we've been doing with Sprite death battles. So like, because you know, like back in the day, we used to have like the characters kind of face off each other, and like, you know, it's like fighting game kind of style, and that's it basically. And we kind of play around with it a little bit here and there, but we didn't have the crazy camera angles and the zoom and the pans and all this like crazy stuff. But since we have like evolved what a sprite animation has become, and like basically on that battle, it made that transition a lot easier, which is really cool. So yeah, it's just been awesome. It's been awesome working with all these talented people and then telling them what to do. That part.
Laying down the law.
I see a lot of people in chat saying that you've been doing an awesome job. So thanks for the support, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, yeah, you've been kicking ass, guys. Like, this has been a fantastic season so far. Let's get to question 7. Pardon the quick interruption. I just want to take 1 minute to talk about our sponsor, Canva Pro. Canva Pro is the easy-to-use graphic design platform that helps you design like a pro. Canva Pro can help boost you and your team's productivity and creativity. It's a quick, easy, and affordable way to design whatever you need. Canva Pro has helpful design tools that you can choose from depending on your needs for a project, including a collection of over 75 million premium photos, videos, audio, and graphics. That's a lot. Plus, it comes with time-saving tools that simplify and speed up the creative process. You get all this and more with just one subscription. If you've followed me in Death Battle for a while, like before the Rooster Teeth times, you know that this all began with just a little startup company. And what I found is that you can have the greatest ideas in the world, but without quality design and presentation, almost nobody's going to notice. Canva Pro is an excellent way to get that quality without the stress. Design like a pro with Canva Pro. Right now, you can get a free 45-day trial when you use my promo code. Just go to canva.me/cast to get your free 45-day extended trial. That's canva.me/cast. Canva.me/cast. Thanks for the support, Canva Pro. Now let's get back to the show.
And this one comes from Elwolf Jerickson. Sure. For the Cloud vs. Link fight, how did you end up deciding on the materia for Cloud to use? Would limiting his materia have made a difference in the outcome, as that seemed to be a factor in the previous matchup between these two? Thank you for the fun show. Aw, thank you for watching.
So I think the question is referring specifically to how did we decide which material would be used in the animation?
All of them.
In the analysis.
Or in the analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the analysis, we gave him pretty much everything.
I just think
in the analysis we give him everything because thered be no reason to limit him. The gameplay of Final Fantasy VII it implies that like, oh, you can only carry like X amount of materia based on the slots in your sword. That's just a gameplay thing. You can just hold up materia in your hand and control it with your mind. That's how you cast spells, is just with your mind. So you don't actually, there is no reason to limit Cloud to a certain number of materia based on his weapon slots. And because he's an RPG character and because we treat characters at their best, we assume that the Cloud we're using is a Cloud where the player who's playing Final Fantasy VII collected all of the materia that you can collect. So Cloud would have
especially
access
with
to all
master materia.
Yeah.
With Master Materia, he literally has all of it.
Exactly.
And
no
as to
problem.
what we showed off in the fight, it's the relevant stuff to the analysis, plus the stuff that we felt people would want to see.
Yeah, I will say, I don't think we have a question about it, but I did see some people wondering why a summon didn't show up in a fight. That, again, goes to... so every death battle, especially the every death battle animation, something gets cut. Something gets removed partway through. Link versus Cloud is no exception. There were multiple scenes that were removed that were even like drawn out in the Animax stage that were removed or removed before we got to the Animax stage. Like there was a whole sequence where Link was going to use the fire rod at one point.
But instead we had Cloud hit more rocks.
Yep. Him hitting the rocks was originally going to be him smashing through buildings. But we didn't have the time or resources to build the full city of the slums, so we basically just put the church in a canyon instead.
It is in a canyon.
But now it's an empty canyon. For some reason, the rest of the slums is just gone. There was talk about like him bringing out Bahamut or Knights of the Round. I think was the one that we really wanted to talk about bringing out. There was
extend the animation to like 7 minutes long.
At a certain point, we joked like, "There's no way we're going to be able to like do Knights of the Round justice with the time we have, unless you like severely trim down the fight itself." We didn't want to do that. So at one point we did joke about it just cutting to the actual animation from the game, but we just like put Link's head on whatever character is being attacked. We didn't end up doing that, obviously, but like at the end of the day, I guess we should have mentioned that there's going to be spoilers. Big spoilers for Link vs. Cloud, Hover, Iron Fist, and Steven Starr throughout this whole episode. At the end of the day, Cloud is more powerful than most, if not all, of his summons anyway, so it didn't really matter. All right,
even
before we get to the next question.
Even if you limit Cloud to like no materia, he just cuts Link in half.
Sadly. Before we get to the next question, I do want a really quick shout out. RTX is coming soon. Very soon, July 8th through the 17th. It's coming up fast. You can join us for 10 days of entertainment at rtxevent.com. Go check that out. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up. We have a big death battle panel as well. We hope you can join.
We have a happy hour, which might be sold out, but if not, there might be a couple tickets left, which is where it's going to be a more intimate experience, where you get to hang out with us and we get to chat. Sam's whispering in my ear. What?
He wants us to say vote for DBX. I was going to save that to later, but
we're getting to it. Yeah,
it's in the rundown, Sam. You can just scroll down. No.
But make sure you go and check that out. Go sign up for the happy hour. It's still available. Also, you can get a personalized video message from me. That's a thing you can buy. You can make me say stuff if you want.
Will you do it in the Boomstick voice if they ask?
Yeah, if they ask, yeah.
Okay.
One of the most terrifying things ever that happened to me was Chad saying my name in the Boomstick voice. It was like a truly terrifying like out of body experience. It was just so weird.
Liam Swan.
Oh, he's thinking of himself in a dead battle.
It's very strange.
You feel like you're not that bad.
Was that like the weird? Was that the full circle moment of I'm a part of this? Like
yeah.
Okay,
it's like a paralysis demon.
This is a great segue into a question I want to ask you, Chad.
Sure.
How has recording Death Battle and voicing Boomstick in particular evolved for you over the past decade?
Well, I've gotten a lot better at the voice, that's for sure. Man, I'll look back at some of those early episodes and just be like, ugh. And what's funny is really finding the voice to what it came out to be started because I needed it to stop hurting. I found a different way to do the voice in my throat that makes it not nearly as bad.
You weren't like, you didn't have like voice acting training when we started this, right? Like you hadn't done a lot of acting at the time.
It's literally came about because we had that meeting, Ben, where you showed us the concept and then we all were like, this is really great, but we think it needs a co-host. And then afterwards, you just came up to me and you go, hey, you like doing silly voices because you've heard me do like impressions and stuff. And you're like, would you want to be the co-host? And I was like, that sounds good. And then we just talked about like, if there are two, what are they like? And we talked about the odd couple thing, and that one would be really nerdy and scientific and the other would be like a weapons expert. So I was like, well, let's go the opposite of scientist and do redneck. And then
You heard it here first, folks. Rednecks can't be scientists.
I mean, hey, technically, Boomstick has a PhD in poultry science, so
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Boomstick, I believe, has a doctorate and Wiz does not.
Shattering the glass ceiling.
but yeah, so
Redneck
it's just, I mean,
scientists.
practicing it, finding a way for it not to hurt, and then like, you know, you then hear it, and then you go, oh, like, okay, cool, I could put more emphasis into these words and things, and then it just evolved, and now it's like second nature, and it doesn't hurt nearly. If my voice is in a good condition, I can like voice Boomstick for quite a while, and I'll be totally fine. If my voice is already a little rough, then it will shred it. So that's just the nature. I love the character's voice, but yeah, there are definitely times I'm like, man, it would be so much easier if I was doing what Ben's doing.
Yeah, that's fair. Tillerman in the chat is asking, is Batman's opponent going to be revealed, I believe, at our RTX panel? I believe that's the plan. Yes, it will. He will be. Also, Computer Ronin asks, will there ever be more blooper reel videos? Something we haven't done in a while.
I wish. I hope so. And that's something I wish we could. I mean, there's plenty from the audio. We just don't have the video because we're recording from home.
Yeah, that kind of suffered from the pandemic and us recording separately, because I feel like we had a lot more bloopers when Chad and I would record together. It was just a lot easier to like lean into that and just have. I mean, we still record together, but we don't record in the same room anymore. So we'll see. Currently,
I promise
there's no
you.
bloopers in prepared or anything like that. But I mean, I doubt it won't. I imagine it'll come back in some form at some point.
If someone wants to go rip through that audio and put something together, there's definitely a handful from us voicing from home.
Yep. I don't think as many as normal.
No, not as many normal.
But you
some
like
winners.
when we were at the office in the booth, like we would just go on tangents and just waste so much time.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to question 8. This is a big one.
Dude Blade X, hey, what's up? Says supernova always bugged me since it was only ever used once and then never again. On top of Cloud being knocked down and out by way less, it feels like the Archie Sonic black hole thing. Is there evidence of supernova not being an outlier for Cloud's durability?
So supernova is tricky.
It's not. Yeah,
Go for it.
it's
Liam.
not the only feat that is way better than what Link can do. So let me just I have the list right here. So there's also the other big one that we mentioned in the episode is Bahamut with Exaflare.
Destroying a
The
moon. and
130, yeah, exactly. The 130 exaton figure that we used is actually like the lowest one that we could have used. The highest one using the heat fusion method, for all you calcing nerds out there, got around 2 Yoda tons, which is like large planet, small star level around there, which is actually very conveniently corroborated by the fact that Flare used to be called Nuke in earlier titles. So, just as an experiment, I just had this thought experiment. Let's see what happens. Okay, so Nuke, let's assume that's, if 1980s, let's assume Nuke is 1 megaton, right? That's what like an average Nuke would be around then. Well, if you treat Exa as a literal like prefix, each new prefix is 1,000 times greater. So a kiloflare would be 1,000, megaflare 1,000,000. Exaflare would be a quintillion. That would equal 1 Yoda ton. So actually, very very consistent with the actual like calc that we did. There's also Ifrit, who is stated multiple times to be able to rend the world into ash, which we calculated to be about 1 Yoda ton. So these Yoda ton calcs were very, very, very consistent, and there was no reason to think that supernova wasn't legitimate, especially considering you also have meteor, which would probably be much more than planet level, because the planet in Gaia in Final Fantasy VII contains the life stream, which is what allows characters to do insane fucking like magic attacks like supernova. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff in Final Fantasy VII that gets at that level in terms of power and durability, since they're also using their attacks against each other.
So supernova was definitely one of the big things that we did not take quite so literally back in the day. And I still think there's... I mean, this is fiction at the end of the day. It's all up to interpretation. I still think there is reason to believe that supernova is not quite as it seems. You can totally make a reason for that. You can totally argue that. And I think you can make that still, make sense. We are definitely taking it more as face value based on these other feats, the supporting feats, and what we see. So, yeah, at the end of the day, Cloud survives the sun exploding in his face.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, but it is supported. And I mean, they have all this magic and whatnot, so it's not like he's just standing there. I know, like, common complaints is like, well, if Cloud can just take a sun to the face, why do bullets hurt him? Which is...
Because that means that they can't use guns in the game, right? Like, just in terms of a gameplay thing, if you want to have guns in your fictional setting, they need to be able to hurt people.
Yeah,
so,
and if you get into the scaling of it all, like, the bullets do hurt some summons at some point, so, like, it is possible these are just really powerful bullets. Fiction gets messy with that. Like,
I would say that
like,
is a low outlier. I would say that bullets are a low outlier in that case.
But again, like, just claiming something is just an outlier and shoving it to the side, I'm not a big fan of, because, like, that's intentionally just ignoring something. And then, of course, there's also, like, the argument, like, well, supernova in the Japanese version would just instantly kill you. So, like, no, Cloud shouldn't actually be able to survive it. Actually, it doesn't. Supernova did change for the international release, but the original version of Supernova just dealt 2,000 damage, like, or around 2,000 damage. Whereas when they changed it for the international release, it changed to 15/16 or something like that of characters' health.
So basically, like, level up your character.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to get one-shotted? Get good. Grind for another 3 hours.
All right.
Next question.
Next question.
This one comes from Blue Laddie Blade. Oh, also, what process do you go through for songs? Are they composed before or after the episode has been storyboarded/animated?
Do this one really quickly. After. We send the animatic to Brandon or Aaron, whoever's working on the music. They compose to the animatic and then to the final animation after it is completed and edited together. So yeah, comes afterwards. That's the way it all times out correctly. Next up.
This one comes from Dakota Draws, and their commissions are open. Link versus Cloud has a huge issue. According to your own rules, Link has unlimited magic and has the magic armor from Wind Waker. How could Link ever possibly lose with armor that completely protects him with an unlimited magic source? Did you guys miss this or what?
Oh, snap.
It's one of these ones. I love when they phrase them like this.
Little antagonistic, but okay. Yep. So a couple things about that. Liam, you probably have some things to say, but I will say the magic armor got retconned. Doesn't use magic. I know it's called the magic armor. Doesn't use magic anymore. Use rupees. It uses rupees.
Isn't it like a commentary on, like, capital? But, like, wasn't that the, like, joke?
Money's stealing all the magic from the world.
That's just vaguely from playing Twilight Princess. Wasn't that like the joke?
So Twilight Princess was originally going to have a magic meter, and then they took it out pretty late. So they changed the magic armor in Twilight Princess to use rupees. And then when they re-released Wind Waker, they realized that the rupee thing worked better, I guess. Maybe because you could game the magic system with, like, potions and whatnot. So they changed the magic armor in Wind Waker to also use rupees. So that's one reason why we can't necessarily associate it with it, because there's two different versions of it, and the more recent version is rupees. Also, like, it's not necessarily invincible, right?
No, an unlimited magic source is sort of like the androids from Dragon Ball, like Android 17 and 18. Like even assuming that he just has like an unending source of magic, like, okay.
Doesn't necessarily mean it can't be overpowered.
Yeah, Cloud's magic is way, 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 way more powerful. He also has ways of dispelling barriers like de-barrier and de-spell. Summons like Knights of the Round bypass magical defenses. And Cloud could just, again, straight up overpower him.
Yeah. All right.
So.
I think that covers it. Next question.
But before we continue, here's a quick break for our sponsor, Codecademy. There's never been a better time to become a programmer, and honestly, it's only going to keep getting better. With Codecademy, you can learn to code on your own terms. Codecademy is the best way to learn to code online. They not only teach you job-ready coding skills, but also help you build unique projects for your portfolio, earn certificates, and even prep for technical interviews. Learning new skills can be challenging, and I've found that the most difficult part is actually just getting started and sticking to it. Codecademy helps take out a lot of that load off your plate so that you can just get into what you really want to do. Codecademy can help you learn all sorts of coding languages, including Python, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and more. Plus, you get instant feedback. What was that? Oh, right. Instant. That's huge. When you write up some code, it's tested as soon as you submit it, so you'll always know if you're on the right track. Join the millions of people learning to code with Codecademy and see where coding can take you. Get 15% off your Codecademy Pro membership when you go to codecademy.com and use the promo code CAST. That's promo code CAST at codecademy.com to get 15% off Codecademy Pro, the best way to learn to code. CODECADEMY.com, promo code CAST. Thanks, Codecademy. Now, back to the show.
From Azure Blue Wolf says, in several death battles, you've stated multiple times that just because a character defeats an opponent, they don't necessarily scale to them. Why is it that in this death battle you've scaled Cloud's speed to Bahamut when he's never shown that kind of speed in any media?
Ooh, that sounds like a Liam question.
Go for it.
So, for a character to not scale to a character that they fight or that they defeat, the defeat would have to be something that's removed from like speed, right? So, like Zack fights Bahamut physically, involving speed, right? And then Cloud scales to Zack. Cloud's roughly equivalent to Zack. So there's your scaling for that. Bahamut. I did get a lot of comments about Bahamut. Us using its travel speed feat. It's 1,200 times, I think, is what we went with. Travel speed feat, and then scaling it to his combat speed, like his reactions. And we've talked about this like a couple of times before in cast, but I'll do it again because they are different. Travel speed and combat speed are different, but you can use travel speed to determine combat speed, with very few exceptions that are very obvious. So the reason why you can use travel speed to get combat speed is because, one question, how did Bahamut Fury know when to stop flying to Earth? Right? Like, if he's flying from one planet to Earth, how did he know when to stop flying? How did he know when to stop and not crash into the Earth? He would have had to.
He reacted
to it, right? Like, in that instant, Earth is like a projectile moving at him at 1,200 times the speed of light, and he reacted to it. If you phrase it like that, it's like, oh, yeah, if I throw a baseball at you at 1,200 times the speed of light, and you react to it and catch it, that seems like a combat speed feat, right? Well, it's the same thing here. So that's why.
Yeah, it's. I don't know if we can necessarily say, like, just because we scaled to him doesn't mean Cloud can suddenly fly from Neptune to
can't.
Earth. No. Like, that's not what's going on.
That's not what we're saying. Just that, like, if Bahamut Fury can react to something coming at him 1,200 times the speed of light, his arms would need to move relatively the same speed, right? Or else, from his perspective, it would take him a century to move his arm for a punch or do anything, right? Okay, so if he can move his arms at that speed, this applies to just most characters in general, then, like, a character that can dodge attacks from him or hit him without him being able to react would also be moving at relatively the same speed.
And just to cover one last bit, like, I saw some people mentioning, like, Zack fought Bahamut when he was standing still. And it's like, that's game mechanics, guys. This is an RPG.
Yeah.
It's a turn-based RPG. Like,
yeah.
And having
Also,
children, they're not just standing there waiting for attacks to hit them. They're not waiting for their turn.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, like if he swung his sword and cut Bahamut and Bahamut didn't dodge out of the way, then it would have to be faster than Bahamut could react, or at least relative, right? So yeah.
And it's sort of a generalization in some ways. It's like he's somewhere in this realm of speed, right? Like,
Yes.
Makes sense that way. Okay, next up, let's do question 12. Getting close to the end here.
Abu Bakar, a bug. Okay. To Ben, since you were working on the OG Cloud versus Link, were you able to add anything in terms of animation to the remake/rematch that you weren't able to do with the OG? Since back then, working on 3D animation was limiting back then. Please and thank you. Again,
I think
Link
animation
versus
back
Cloud
then-
1 was not supposed to be 3D.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Link vs. Cloud was written to be a sprite fight.
This. Oh.
The animator, I said that weird. The animator, who was working on it, was talking with him back and forth. Due date came along, and I was like, "Hey, man, how's the fight coming along?" And this was back when things were super loose and we didn't know what we were doing. Keep that in mind, like year 1 or 2 of Death Battle. It's all up in the air. And I got a response. I was like, "Oh, it's coming along, but it's not finished yet. You want to see it? What I've got?" And checked it out. It was suddenly 3D. So yeah, the animator at the time was trying out 3D, and you know what? I think it turned out pretty good for what it was. For a first
like
time
the
kind
first
of thing.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's fun,
so-
like roasted.
So one of the big things that did not come across the way I wanted it to in the original 3D was the ribbon, Cloud's ribbon. We got a lot of comments how Cloud is frozen in the animation, and then breaks out when the ribbon is just supposed to like just not let that happen. So that is something that I wanted to recreate in this fight and do more accurately. That is probably the biggest thing
I got it.
think of. Yeah, I mean, you get it, but like in the
I get
animation, it is much slower
Right.
before, and now it's faster in the new one.
And
But,
the new one just has so many cool references. Like,
It's
it's
and the
just
motorcycles.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah,
Okay.
and the
I don't think
motorcycle.
we've ever mentioned this before. So Link did not have the Master Cycle back in 2012, right?
Right.
But Chad, you might remember this. Very early on in writing that version of Link vs. Cloud, there was a discussion about like, what if we have Cloud on his motorcycle at the beginning and Link's on Epona?
Yes, I do remember
Yeah.
that very
And there
much.
was going to be a horse versus motorcycle fight. And the only reason why it didn't happen was I was worried about like how it might look in sprites.
Right.
A horse sprite might be a little weird, especially with like a motorcycle driving around and whatever. I was like, I don't
Missing
know if
the-
it's gonna look great.
Obvious opportunity to have Epona versus a chocobo.
Yeah,
That was
Golden
also
Chocobo,
something we
right?
talked about as well. But
Yeah,
like,
it sure was.
yeah. So that
so
didn't
Trigger-
happen, and then that's eventually we got the motorcycle versus motorcycle fight in the new one.
So what you're saying, to answer that question, the 3D wasn't limiting. It was just not existent.
Yeah, basically.
Got it.
All right. Let's get to the next question. Question 12, I think. No.
This one comes from Arctic64. How long does it take to make animation, like for Wiz and Boomstick and the fights? That varies wildly.
Yeah. Very
Well,
wildly on the scene.
Just real briefly, Luis, do you think you can kind of cover a general idea?
Yeah, usually.
Especially like with
for-
the differences.
Yeah, the difference is, I mean, like, obviously, Wiz and Boomstick will be a much more simpler style of animation because there's no choreography in those scenes.
They're puppets.
At least usually, yeah. And yeah, they're puppets, and it usually takes around like 1 to 2 weeks to do a shot of like Wiz and Boomstick for to get it from start to finish. But you gotta keep in mind that like there's multiple animators working on each one of them. So
They're also
basically-
working on other projects. Like we have
Yeah.
animators who work on multiple projects at once, not just Death Battle.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of like their stacks at very specific times when they're free and they don't have like anything else in their timeline. As for actual fights, 3D fights obviously take longer. Usually anywhere between like 8 to 10 weeks, and for 2D fights, like sprite fights, those take around 5 to 7 weeks. It really all depends on how complicated the fight is, and it's one of those things that we don't realize like how complicated some shots will be until we get into the
Until you
actual
get into
animations.
it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so like it varies basically depending on the fight.
It's a very complicated process.
Yeah.
Very complicated.
All right. Question 14.
This one comes from No More Heroes. Yes, why did you guys skip over Age of Calamity? It's a canon game, just only canon to the alternate timeline. Still the same link.
Okay, I wanted to cover this because I saw a couple people asking about this, and I think it largely comes from how Nintendo promoted Age of Calamity. It is not canon. It does not match up. So the idea of Age of Calamity, when it was first pitched, was it's a prequel to Breath of the Wild. Game comes out. It's not really. It's a time travel story, and the idea is what is it called? Diminutive Guardian, I think, goes back in time to change the events. You could argue then that like, oh, it's still the same link, but a different timeline, right? So technically that link should still apply. The thing is, the timeline that the Guardian goes back to is already different. A big example would be how Link does not have the Master Sword when Zelda approaches the champions. In the timeline set by Breath of the Wild itself, he already has had the Master Sword for potentially years before the other champions get involved. There's other things, too, that don't line up. The basic idea is whatever timeline this Guardian goes back to is not the same one that it came from, if it even came from the main timeline at all. So it is technically considered just both Hyrule Warriors games are just generally considered not part of the main canon, not a main series link, and can't really be tied into the spirit of the hero reincarnations that we are working with.
They're talking about the meme now in the chat. They said time, huh? All right.
Uh-oh.
How unfortunate that we have like our main meme derives from literally one very commonly used word, like
Time.
Yeah.
Why that one? Why that one?
I don't know, but
I don't
that's
know.
very interesting, Ben.
I wrote that line in like 2 seconds. I was like, time, huh? I don't know.
All right, let's knock out these last few questions.
This one comes from Ryo Zoito. Regarding Link versus Cloud, since it's shown the Cloud tanked Supernova, and by extension all 8 are considered to have fought Sephiroth and taken a Supernova blast, are you planning on revisiting Yang versus Tifa?
Yeah, I wanted to address this because obviously, I'm actually surprised we didn't get more questions about this after Sephiroth versus Virgil, because I feel like we kind of established this with that episode. But this one makes it more obvious, I guess. There are plenty of episodes, especially from season 1 and 2 of Death Battle, that I think would be pretty easy for us to like maybe disagree with or question these days. I don't necessarily want to sit here and say like, oh, that episode's probably incorrect based on our current research methods and whatever, because that would kind of like make us set up like an expectation to do a rematch or something like that, and maybe the rematch would either come out with a different answer, and also like we can only do so many rematch episodes, right? Like you guys don't want us to do. Well, I guess I've never really asked if you guys would like us to do a bunch of rematches, like a season of rematches. That might be interesting, but I would like to hear from you guys if that's something you'd want us to do. I don't think we'll ever do a rematch of Tifa versus Yang.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's safe to say, pretty sure that one would change with this new exploration of how Supernova works, and just feats and summons in general. Like that was again back in the day where we interpreted Final Fantasy very differently. And again, I think there's still like you can still argue an interpretation that still fits that that analysis, but like taking it with a more face value approach like we're doing, no, like I think Yang loses that. But we probably won't do a rematch because I think I would love to bring Tifa back. I think Tifa would be great to bring back for a different fight, and I feel like she's got a lot better matches than one where she kind of obviously wins.
Sakura,
so
maybe from Naruto.
Yeah, that might be a good one. There are plenty of good ones. But yeah, Yeah, I think I can officially say that Yang would lose against this version of, or this interpretation of Tifa for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one.
And then next one.
Comes from Ivan Lerma. Ivan Lerma, sure. Will Death Race return? And will it have unique episodes such as flying attractions and boats?
So I did want to make sure that this is out there. There are currently no plans, at least as far as I know, to bring Death Race back anytime soon. It's still up in the air as something that might happen. Yeah, I mean, if DoorDash wants to sponsor it again.
That's how it happened in the first place.
Yeah, it's not necessarily something we won't ever do again, for sure. Like, we would love to do that Death Race again. It just depends if the opportunity comes up.
Death Race was such a blast. Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, I would love to do another season of Death Race. So, and honestly, like the first season of Death Race, we were very limited to like we had to put things together pretty quickly, so we were limited in what we could pull into the races themselves. So if we did another season of Death Race, I would absolutely want to like expand from just like from what we did and have maybe a flying one or boat race or something like that, like a running race. Like we could do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, perfect.
There's some great episodes we could do.
Sam in the chat saying you can buy a season of Death Race if you happen to be extremely wealthy. It's surprisingly affordable.
Yeah. Well, like you'll notice that we talked about teams of animators last a little ways earlier, right? You'll notice Death Race was all animated by a freelance animator, Devil Artemis. So like. You can help us pay them. Well, we can do it.
Kickstarter for Death
Maybe,
Race.
I don't know. All right. So just to kind of wrap this up, because we actually this timed out really well. Thank you everybody for jumping into this and for participating in this awesome little wrap up here. But everybody here, Chad, Liam, Luis, of the episodes that we've released so far, don't spoil anything. Of the episodes that we've released so far this year, what's stood out as like a character or a moment that has been the most fun or interesting to you? Animation.
While I refresh
Luis?
myself.
I can go first.
This year.
I can go first real quick. I think the moment I really like how the moment came out in Link vs. Cloud where Link uses the ocarina to do the Songs of Storm, and then you see his like big epic reveal, and then like the lift up for the lightning ball. It just kind of like everything just kind of felt like it just it's like that moment where you're like, oh, he's doing the Song of Storm, what's happening? And then it reveals it's like, oh man, he looks so cool, and then suddenly, oh shit, he's doing that to get the lightning bolt and like and hit like that moment just came out like perfectly for me. So yeah, that moment really stood out to me.
Yeah, we actually talked a little bit about that with Brandon last episode too. If you haven't seen that episode of Death Metal Cast, go check it out. We had Brandon Yates, our musician, on, and we went through several different iterations of the music to really like hit that feeling of like this epic Link moment where everything he's been working towards pays off, and then Cloud, because he's so fucking powerful, just redirects the lightning strike into Link, and everything just explodes.
Yeah, that was just
Link.
Like peak writing there.
There you go. Yeah, I think out of this season so far, like Link vs. Cloud is like a really big standout to me because one is working with the source film team now using Blender, and like the animation just looks beautiful. And also, dude, it is such like a love letter like to like all these different eras and things that these characters have been in. Like, dude, when we did Four Swords Link, I lost my damn mind, right? Like that was so cool. And like just all the different things that we go through. It was really fun. And then aside from that, also Steam versus Star, because I really like Star Butterfly. I think it's a really fun, great show. So it was cool to see. And I loved how much fun we had with that fight. Just even the beginning of him picking up Star as a plank and setting her down is just so perfect. I love it.
I loved when Kaden, when she auditioned for Steven, and that came through and I listened to it, I was like, fuck yes, this is perfect. I'm so happy that Kaden jumped on that because that was awesome. And I really liked going through the writing process for Poe Iron Fist.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, that was just Laszlo did such a good job, and it felt like we were writing just like a legitimate sort of
Kung Fu Panda short or something.
Kung Fu Panda short, yeah, with Iron Fist thrown in a way.
Yeah.
And it's always so much fun when a fight can feel like it's part of those characters, like franchises, or it just emulates them so well. Like the matchup just works together so well, and I think that's a really good example of it.
Yeah.
Anything from you, Liam?
I really liked a Superman.
Oh yeah, that goes so good.
You made me worried I was about to spoil an episode that
No.
already came out.
No. I just I just wanted to mention as well the food dive bit was like so good.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I
The
go
foot
back
dive.
to
Yeah.
rewatch that.
That was like that was improvised animation. It originally was like much simpler, but then Zach, I believe, was just like, how about I just go ham, and then there you go. And it's one of the best moments from the fight. I also like a Superman because originally I asked Gianni to like hum the Superman theme for a potential, like, as he's punching Doom, like he's just going no, you know, like, because he's just such a crazy secret Superman fanboy.
Lex Doom wasn't this season, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
Wow.
Liam. Liam directed it.
Yeah.
I know. It's been.
I don't know.
COVID
It's
throws
all
everybody
really
off.
great.
Hell yeah, dude! Lex versus Doom is
Wow.
fucking incredible. That's one of my favorite 2D fights we've ever done.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh man,
Yeah.
so many good things. The foot dive combos, that turning and the smashing through the wall. Oh god, so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. I think that's a great place to end this. Thank you so much to
Go
everybody
vote
who
on
joined. Yes, there is a DBX that is coming up. If you have not seen it yet, the DBX for Naruto versus Ryu Hayabusa is out right now. You can go check that out. Man, really cool fight. And Apocalypse versus Black Adam is next up. You can go vote on that on the Death Battle Twitter. And your vote decides who the winner is. That's how DBX works. Surprise, if you haven't checked that show out in a while. Very excited for you guys to see that episode next week. It's going to be super fun. And next up, if you're watching live, is going to be Achievement Hunter. So stay tuned for that on RTTV. Liam, Luis, Chad, thank you so much for joining. And as for you guys watching, be kind to others, be kind to yourself, stay awesome, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Take care.